This is Speaking of Pets podcast, where we give you up-to-date, accurate, science-based information when making decisions about your pet's health.
From experts in dermatology like my sister, surgery, internal medicine, CBD use in pets, the pet food industry, you name it. If it affects pets, we'll talk about it.
Today's Speaking of Pets podcast is sponsored by Blue Buffalo, the maker of natural pet foods. Love them like family, feed them like family. Blue Buffalo offers wholesome, meat-first recipes with high-quality natural ingredients in flavors dogs and cats love. Discover formulas for all breed sizes, life stages, and lifestyles. And with Blue Buffalo's True Blue Promise, that assures that real meat is the first ingredient, with no poultry byproducts, no corn, wheat, or soy, and no artificial flavors or preservatives. Welcome to Speaking of Pets podcast. I'm Dr. Alice Novotny-Jeroman, a board-certified allergist and dermatologist, and
I'm Janet Novotny-King. I am not a board-certified allergist and dermatologist. I'm her sister, but I am a pet lover, owner, and pet rescuer.
Janet, we have a wonderful special guest today. I can't wait to ask her a whole bunch of questions. Dr. Goricki is she graduated with her vet degree from Munich, Germany, then did an internship at the University of Pennsylvania College of Veterinary Medicine in small animal medicine and surgery. She also served as the vet for Marineland and for the Florida Stranding Network, which we need to ask her tons of questions about that. Also, 2 years ago, she joined the Street Dog Coalition as the head of the Jacksonville team. And for all of you that aren't aware of what the Street Dog Coalition is, in a nutshell, I'll mention it, but I'm sure Dr. Goricki can inform us better. It serves to provide veterinary care and other related care to pets of homeless people or people who are at risk of not having a home. So we can't welcome you enough, Dr. Goricki, and thank you so much for all that you do. And I'd love to hear about how you came to work for Street Dog Coalition.
So like every other veterinarian in the world, we do a lot of stuff kind of on the side and help people out when there's opportunities. And so we're, I think, generally as a profession aware of people's limitations sometimes in terms of cost and what they can do. And we also all know that our pets are just tremendously important to us, regardless of what our situation is. And so I became aware of folks. We moved recently into the downtown area of our city and were aware of folks that drive around their shopping carts and have a dog in the basket, or that have a lot of luggage that they carry around along with their dog. And it turns out there's also quite a few people that live rough that have cats as pets. And I thought there's got to be something there I can do to help. And I was thinking about what it would take to do that sort of thing on my own. And someone told me about Street Dog. And what they do is they have already invented this wheel, and they're doing it out of Colorado. And they fund other groups to start clinics in cities all over the country. So I know you guys are in Cleveland, and Cleveland has a Street Dog Coalition team. And I was lucky enough that Jacksonville, I was able to start it here.
So I was reading on the Street Dog Coalition website, they're in over 60 cities now?
They are all over the place. So really all it takes is somebody who says, I want to do this, and then is willing to put in the time. And they supply everything that we need. So they set us up with the medicines, with the vaccines, with a scale, pretty much everything but the manpower to do a veterinary clinic, just the basic care stuff. And well, that's really it. It's pretty easy, and then you just have to find people. And amazingly, that was almost the easiest thing, was finding people who were interested in helping.
Love that.
Yep.
So how do your clients find out about you?
Well, so Street Dog has a pretty strict policy about not advertising per se. you don't want to attract people who are just trying for a low cost option. You really want to try and reach the people who need you the most. What I have found works is, first of all, working with the Zolzbacher Center, which is a local center that serves the homeless and serves people who are, again, exactly kind of the clientele that we're looking for. So they put out posters. I send them a flyer, they post it, they let their people know. They have a mobile clinic that they do outreach with, and they have it posted there as well. And then I send a flyer every time we hold a clinic. I send a flyer to all the food banks. And then I send my husband out.
And what does he do? Since Janet and I both have husbands that need to get busy, how does he go about it?
So officially he's retired, but I keep him busy.
Mine too. Right. And Janet, hopefully you guys will retire soon. So really, is it like the same day every month, or you can just pick and choose what day you're going to do this?
So I am not retired, and we're all talking about self-care, and although this ticks a lot of boxes about making me feel good about myself and my place in the community, it is quite a bit of work in terms of the setup. I'm very fortunate that I have my sister-in-law was doing something similar in Gainesville, which is about an hour and a half away, and she jumped in and is my office manager. So she does all the paperwork, which is a giant pain in the neck. But it's time consuming. And so I decided when I started that I would be wise and only commit. So Street Dog Coalition requires that I hold 4 clinics a year, and that's what we're doing. So it's just every 3 months. And that's what we can do and be successful and not wear ourselves out. I know that the clinic in Colorado goes out weekly.
Oh, okay.
And so
that's where it started, right?
Right, that's where it started. And so it just depends on where folks are. There are also several other resources in Jacksonville, so people aren't completely reliant on us. And really what we're doing is just very basic care.
And I was impressed with, I watched a couple of the YouTubes for Street Dog Coalition. It's not a walk-through vaccine clinic. There are individual appointments, and each pet is examined, and I mean, it's a full veterinary exam.
Well, so we have, so again, volunteers it doesn't work without volunteers. And I usually have more veterinarians volunteering than I know what to do with. And at the last clinic, for instance, I had the veterinary dentist, board certified dentist, taking my pictures for me.
We met. Yes.
Right. Dr. Hoffman. And then I had a veterinary surgeon relearning how to give vaccines. And I had the veterinary ophthalmologist also doing exams, but it allows us to actually do some deeper stuff just in the framework of the appointment. Because we have these specialists there. It's very cool.
Well, then I guess the dermatologist better not add myself into the mix.
Well, so what are you seeing in the patients? Is it just regular veterinary care? Are you seeing disease?
So our main thrust is to do vaccines and preventatives. We in Florida have just a huge problem with heartworms and intestinal parasites and fleas. And so when you see fleas, you have skin problems. So we do, that's the key stuff that we do. And we set them up. There's, again, an organization in Jacksonville that does spays and neuters for free for people who qualify. And our clientele generally does. So once they have their vaccines, then they really have no cost associated with that procedure.
Do you do microchipping too, or
So if they want a microchip, we'll also microchip them.
And the humans that are bringing these pets in, what are you seeing there? Like, are they well educated? Have they fallen on bad luck? Are they
all of the above? So we have folks who have substance abuse problems and mental illness. We have folks who have fallen off of their health insurance, lost their homes, that sort of thing, and are scrambling to keep things together. Um, we are serving some folks that live in the subsidized housing, where again, the hardship is making sure that they have good care for their pets, even though they're housed. So again, anywhere where we can facilitate keeping families together, and by family I mean not just the people but also the pets.
And I've heard the argument that these people can't afford food themselves. Why should they have a pet? But in my opinion, these pets are keeping some of these people alive.
Absolutely.
It's the human animal bond. I mean, it's kind of like the thing where I've had clients say to me, well, when I die, I want my dog to be put to sleep because no one can care for them like me. And I don't agree with that, by the way.
Right.
But to not allow these people to have pets, I think that's criminal. They need love in their lives.
Right. I think I've come around on that. We as veterinarians sometimes roll our eyes when people have expensive cars but are stingy about the care for their pets. But we definitely we had a gentleman, Daniel, who came to us with his cat and told us, and he was clearly living rough. And he told us how that cat had saved his life on numerous occasions simply by being there. I think he had a seizure disorder, and somehow the cat helped him through that. And we have, for some of the people having the dog there, it's a protection against someone hurting them or stealing their stuff when they're not in a safe space.
Gosh, I hope none of those pets get harmed in that event, of when there's crime amongst that group. Oh, that would be horrible. Having said that, Dr. Goricki, I have a client who's a veteran, and he suffers from PTSD, and he had his giant schnauzer in. And I'm telling you, this giant schnauzer, as a therapy dog, I was kind of like, wow, because he wasn't the typical therapy dog. He's jumping on us, and and so I said to the veteran that I got to know him, and actually, to be honest, Blue Buffalo provides him with food for the rest of the life of that dog, which I'm thankful they're doing. But I said to him, I'm just curious. He's your therapy dog. What actually is his action? 'Cause I didn't even know how to ask that. He said that he will not let anyone come up behind me because that's my problem. So God bless him. So, this dog was as crazy as my two golden rescues out there. They're out in the backyard running around now. But when he had to do his job, and I always walked in front of him when we would walk out of the exam room, and so they do so much for us that sometimes you're not even aware of what they do, but they're doing it.
So I did a lot of work with the homeless, and I found that, and Alice, you and I have talked about this, you can't judge them by like the vehicle they drive up in. It might be the last thing they have, or it could be someone that lent it to them for the day. You just can't pass that judgment. And we actually had an area in our food pantry where we would take cat and dog food. And those clients that, when we had it, were so excited. We even would, if we could call them when we knew we were getting it in or it was donated, they were so grateful because the pet was the most important thing to them. And as you said, Alice, it was keeping them going.
So anyway, Dr. Goricki, I wanted to ask you about this. I had a client that she had two pugs, and she would bring in a little Ziploc bag these little scabs that she was pulling off her skin, that she said something was eating her and the human. And there was nothing wrong with the dogs. And I put the dogs on, at the time, Revolution. We didn't have Bravecto or anything like that. And so we treated both dogs just in case they had Kailatiella or something like that. And I know she kept coming in to get it refilled, and I know she was using it on herself. I know she was.
She was using the medicine on herself?
Yeah, because I think some strange thing gave her relief. But now I'm wondering if she had Lyme disease and she had a neuropathy from that, now that we know so much more about Lyme.
Right.
But anyway, I was just wondering if you had ever...
But you mentioned
Munchausen by proxy. So in other words, something's wrong with the dog, but you're creating it. It's not really wrong with the dog. But have you ever seen anything like that in any of the humans that bring the dogs or cats in?
Not yet at Street Dog, but certainly in my veterinary practice.
Yeah.
So I have my daughter said, when you go on this podcast, you have to tell the story about the cloth worm.
Oh,
And
please tell us.
Cloth
so,
or cloth?
so we
Cloth?
cloth as in fabric. So
Fabric. Huh.
we have a nursing home, assisted living home near our practice, and we had a call from a resident there who said she knew the owner and she needed to bring her cat in because it had worms. And the receptionist said, "What kind of cat?" And she said, "An electronic cat." And she said, "Hang on a second." And she came back and asked, and I said, "Well, we have to see it. If it's an electronic cat, we got to see
What
it."
is an
Bring it
electronic
in.
cat? Like, you mean like what runs with batteries and goes like this?
So she came in with her caregiver and said, "Here's my cat," and it was a little plastic cat with fake fur over it, curled up in a sleeping position, and it was indeed battery operated. They make these for people with dementia as a companion.
Yes.
And so she told me, she said, "I think this cat has worms. I know it's electronic, but it's from China, and I think the Chinese left something in there." And I said, "Well, I think I'll have to examine it." and so we brought her into the exam room, and the entire time I'm trying to make eye contact with the caregiver to see whether I could get any more information from her, and she refused to make eye contact. And so I examined the cat, and the woman told me that this was the best present she had ever received from her grandson, and this cat slept by her feet and was great company, and everyone was envious of her wonderful cat. And when she was deeply asleep, the cat would crawl up and curl up next to her neck. But there were these worms coming off of the cat, and she didn't want anyone to get sick from it. And she pulled out a little jar that had the worms in it, and they were little pillings from the fur.
Yeah.
And so I
How did
thought
you
to
cure
myself,
that?
well, I thought to myself, no one else has cured it. Everyone, I'm sure, has told her that it's the fur, and that is not good enough. And so I said, "Give me a second. Let me look at it under the microscope. I needed time to think." And so
That's when you got the Academy Award right there.
So I stepped out and I said, "Now what?"
Yeah.
I can't give it a shot because it's not a real cat. I can't put any pill down its throat because it doesn't have one. The cat had, what it could do would be open its mouth and meow and blink its eyes. That was all the movement there was. But I have to fix the cat for the owner to feel at peace with health risks. And so I filled a syringe with air and I gave the cat a shot. And the owner was thrilled. And then she wanted to know how much it was going to cost because she did not want to pay for it. So,
well, that figures. I thought maybe you'd do a lint roller.
I'm not sure that would have made her as happy because,
Right.
it has to be a real medicine.
Hey, did you know that for dogs and cats that could benefit from a prescription diet, Blue Buffalo offers natural veterinary diets formulated by animal nutritionists and veterinarians for certain dietary needs like kidney support, weight management, gastrointestinal support, and my particular favorite, dermatology. They make a food allergic diet that's an alligator-based called NP or a hydrolyzed salmon-based for dogs and cats called HF. Contact your veterinarian about these prescription Blue Buffalo diets.
Okay, since we're telling stories, I got to tell you, we'll just get off the subject once, but I have to tell you one. I had an elderly lady. I'm located south of Cleveland. You lived in Shaker Heights for a while, Dr. Ricky.
Right.
So this lady came from like the Lyndhurst, South Euclid area, and my office was in Richfield. So first of all, I heard about the complaints of how long it took her to get there. Then the complaint of where my parking lot was, she had to walk all the way around and come in the front door. Okay. So she brings this little older poodle in, and I come in the exam room, and it's standing on the exam table on this mat, okay, not a mat that I provided, and like a little cushioned mat, and it's got these little sebaceous adenomas all over it, which older poodles get. It's just an overgrowth of these sebaceous glands, and there's nothing surgically you can take them off, but when you have this many, that's just crazy. There's nothing to.
Are they like little cysts?
People call them warts, but they're not.
Oh,
warts.
okay.
So, so I told her what they were, and at the same time, she's doing something like this, like pressing on something. And I said, "What are you doing?" She had it on some sort of electrified mat, and was
like a shock mat.
Yes, and the dog wasn't moving; it wasn't going, it wasn't jumping or anything. And I said, "Well," I told her what the dog had. And she said, "You mean you made me drive all the way out here and you can't help my dog?" And so then we got into, listen, this is what it is. Isn't it important to know what it is so that you know what it isn't? It's not cancer. It's not something blah, blah, blah. But the whole time I said, I'm very concerned about what you're doing with this electrical charge to this dog. And anyway, after she left and just left complaining, of course, complaining she had to pay something, I called her vet and I said, "Listen, you and I need to get together because I don't like this electrical thing this dog is on. And I think we need to have someone check this out, of like a police nature." And so then I left it. Her vet said that they would handle it. But you do meet all kinds, whether you deal with the homeless like you are or not. Right. But anyway, back to street dog. So is the one in that you're the team leader, Jacksonville, is that the latest one, or are there new ones springing all over?
They're I think at the moment they have a moratorium on adding new clinics because their sponsor, who is Merck, has kind of run out of product for the number of clinics that are up and running at this point. And so it's a question of funding. And that was originally when I was thinking about doing it on my own, thinking about how to fund it was overwhelming. And Street Dog allowed me to pile on their wagon and use their resources.
And that's very important because I was on a mission to establish vet care for seniors that couldn't leave their home. And when, like Dr. Goricki, when you started this or looked into starting it, it's very expensive to start it. I mean, unless you're a big corporation type thing where you'll get donations, it's hard when you're just a little cog in the wheel that wants to start a big thing.
Well, the products, the flea and tick products, are just very expensive, and to have enough of a supply to be able to do much good is you need to have a very good fundraising team or resources to do that. And Street Dog has been around long enough, and for every clinic they collect statistics on how many people were served, how many pets were served. And they collect statistics on the needs of the folks that they're seeing too. Who's homeless, who's just getting other resources, who's using the system.
Right.
So that they can show that the money is going where it's supposed to go. But that's the really time consuming thing that again, I'm very grateful I don't actually have to do. My sister-in-law does it.
So you keep charts on every patient you see.
Oh yeah,
correct?
It's a real clinic.
Yeah.
It's a pop-up clinic.
Wow.
And the first year we were in a parking lot, which in Florida in the summer is extremely hot, and in the winter is pretty darn cold.
Where do you work out of now when you do the clinic?
So the Zolzbacher Center has a building that they loan to us on those Saturday mornings. And so the other thing I wanted to mention is one of the important things that the founder of Street Dog is interested in is One Health. And One Health is caring not just for the pet's health, but also for the owner's health, and where those also intersect. So again, we know that if we're keeping the pets healthy, we're keeping the owners healthy because of parasites and all of that. But also in keeping the pets healthy, we help the owner's mental health. And if we can make that connection with the owner over their pet, they might be more likely to also see a human doctor or nurse for their own issues.
And you're right, and try to stay healthy for that pet.
Right, right, yeah.
Now, what if you, I'm sorry, Janet, what if you, with the human that brings the pet in, the pet owner, what if you see something like horribly wrong? I mean, what is your mode of action then? Like, do you report it to
So because
where?
we're working with the Zolzbacher, they have an on-site clinic, so they are already caring for a lot of these folks,
Okay.
and then of course those that want to be cared for, and
Right.
and then um, we have, because some of the people are not quite stable when they come in with their pets, even if they're what we would call maybe a little scary because they're talking to somebody
Sure.
who's not there, or they're
Hmm.
flailing about a bit. Once we start showing true interest in their pet and we're treating them with the dignity that they deserve, we haven't had any bad experiences with any of that. We had a fellow come in armed with all sorts of stuff, and and
Hmm.
he just wanted his dog taken care of.
You mean
So
weapons he came in
yeah,
with?
yeah, he had knives stuck in his pants, and I want to say there might have been a firearm. But again, we're looking to take care of the pets, and we get a lot of goodwill that way, which
Right.
bleeds over into, again, other types of care. And if we see someone who needs other resources, again, we can share some of those things with them, and hook them into the Zolzbacher.
I was I was reading on the website and also watching some of the YouTubes. Just the setting up of these clinics takes a lot of time.
I mean, you're building a hospital and then taking down a hospital. Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Wow.
Thank goodness your husband's retired.
Well,
I could
yeah,
see him setting up those tables and the computer and the whole bit.
well, he's not that. He's my people person. He's the one that greets people and gets them signed up and hooks them up with paperwork. He that's his gift, is he puts everybody at ease. He's never met a stranger.
So, how many patients will you see on a given day then when you set up?
So we're usually between 40 and 60.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Yep.
That's fantastic. I remember we had a woman who was homeless and living in her car, and she had a big fluffy dog, big dog. And that dog was clean,
Yeah.
was well fed. I mean, the woman didn't look so great. She's a bit disheveled and dirty and such, but that dog was gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget, I'm up north, and we have, very cold winters, and
Right.
she didn't want to move out of that car. That was her home. And so, we gave her the services that we could give her. But I'll never forget that the dog was fantastic, in great shape. And it was like her priority. So it's important that they have the pets.
Yeah.
Is
Right?
the ophthalmologist there every time or no?
Actually, yes, his wife, his three children, and then anybody else
Oh,
can wrangle. And the kids
oh
are
my
all
goodness,
adults.
But
you
you
do
need
have
that help.
helpers.
But you need that help. Yeah.
We typically have more volunteers than we have clients. It's a
Wow.
wonderful dilemma.
Wow.
It is a wonderful dilemma. I would agree with that.
It's a good time.
And I don't want to take away from the Street Dog Coalition, but I have to hear about the Stranding Network. You have to tell us at least one story, like a dolphin or
So
what?
what is the Stranded Network?
So the entire coast of the U.S. is divvied up among different groups who are responsible for addressing any mammal that lands on their shore.
Oh.
And in Florida, there are, I don't know how many different areas there are, but for a time, St. Johns County was its own area. And Marineland had the privilege of dealing with all of the animals that washed up there, all of the mammals. And so the most common thing we saw were pilot whales or pygmy sperm whales, which are small, deep sea whales. And when they wash up, it's because they're dying. They don't normally spend any time near the surface, except for to catch a breath. And the purpose of the Stranding Network is to collect as much data about the deep seas as you can from what lands on our shores.
Mhm.
So, so we had some of the smaller whales, if they're not deep sea whales, can be rehabbed. Manatees fit into that category too. And so if we had that sort of animal, we were able to go out there, secure it, address it, potentially start some fluids, and then figure out how to get it to a place where it could be rehabilitated.
So where's the nearest place that they would take one of these pilot whales?
SeaWorld in Orlando,
Oh,
Harbor Branch, which is in Vero Beach, Miami Seaquarium, or
oh.
Moat Marine in
Wow.
Tampa.
Was it mostly neurotoxin, or haven't they figured out why they beach themselves?
I think the neurotoxin is more a West Coast thing. So at the time that I was doing this, the thing that we saw most commonly were especially the deep sea whales was cardiomyopathy.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Dilated or hypertrophic?
dilated. So they would get a big floppy heart, and then they would not be able to do what they needed to do anymore.
And we don't know the cause of that, huh?
No. And then for a time we had, so distemper is a thing that dolphins and whales also get. And so there was a time when we were dealing with distemper, and those during that time they were not rehabbing anything because they didn't want to risk bringing that in to any of the facilities.
Oh, that's such a shame. Oh my goodness. So when you were at Marineland, that you had to care for all of the marine animals there, correct?
Yeah, so I was what they call the vet of record. So I was the hands and eyes on site, and then I worked with Greg Bossert, who is a specialist for marine mammals, and he was at the Atlanta Aquarium.
What's the most common diseases? I hear that there's a lot of fungal infections. Is that true in marine mammals?
Yeah, they'll get oral fungal stuff. We saw. I'm trying to think of nutritionally. We had some of the longest lived dolphins in the world because Marineland uses salt water pumped in from the ocean, and any of the inland aquariums have to create salt water, and it's very expensive to create the salinity that the ocean has naturally.
Interesting.
So we didn't see as many of the skin issues that I think some of the other facilities saw. But we had heart disease, kidney disease, a lot of the aging stuff that you would expect.
You know, that's so fascinating. Who would think, and first of all, who would know, Janet, you and I didn't know that, pumping in actual sea salt water is much healthier than trying to make your own. Before we go, we need to know what kind of pets you have.
I have a very bratty cat.
Oh, good. How old?
Fidget is 3.
Fidget?
Yes.
I love it. I have a rescue golden named Gidget.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So a bratty 3-year-old cat. Okay.
Yeah, and then I have 2 aging dogs. I have a 12-year-old, 12-and-a-half-year-old greyhound.
Oh.
And she's absolutely lovely, but not very smart. She's my dog. She's the worrier. And then I have a miniature Eskimo who is Mr. Happy.
What a cute family.
Yeah, he's the happy one. Never had a bad day in his life.
Was the greyhound a rescue?
Yeah.
From the track? Yeah.
Yeah.
So glad they closed that down. Those
Yep.
down. Yeah.
Yep.
So glad. And you sound like you got a good one, because a couple that I've met weren't real socialized. They loved their owners, but they weren't into meeting other people.
I don't think she got a lot of attention. She spent the first 6 months pretty much hiding in her crate or in her bed. And it really took several years before she was comfortable around even the entire family, like my son or my husband. Men were a little scary for her. But she is we've had her for 9 years, and she is absolutely happy to be a Goricki.
Oh, she sounds like she's very sensitive.
She is. She is.
Mm.
You look at her cross-eyed, and she thinks that her world has ended.
Oh, God bless her. Aw. Well,
Well,
Janet,
Dr.
you've
Goricki-
got to ask our favorite question.
I know. Dr. Goricki, we have a question for you. What is your pet or human peeve?
My pet or human
Pet or
peeve?
human peeve? Like what just bugs you?
What bugs you?
Things going to waste. That bugs me.
Ah.
Spoken like a true veterinarian.
Yeah.
Because veterinarians, I mean, all of us reuse paper. I mean, we are very frugal people.
Yeah. Yep.
Like the back of this, I'm going to tell you right now. I printed out about the pet dog, the coalition, and on the back of it is our Sirius XM renewal form.
I do the same thing. I actually started composting during COVID, and I love it. It's amazing how it's so much better for the environment. But it is amazing. I take that little bucket out once a day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but Janet, doesn't that draw raccoons? You take it outside?
No, it's in this thing.
Oh,
It's
okay.
on like legs like this. My neighbor didn't want the thing because she didn't want to start doing it. And so I'll take it. And it's really amazing what goes in there. And when I garden, this is so stupid, but when I garden and I find a worm, I put it in a little container and I take it over and I say, "You're going to the Ritz-Carlton." And I drop them in there because it's the best.
Cafeteria.
Yeah, here you are. Help yourself. And it's amazing how many, I look in there and I see them. They're all very happy.
I love, well, like when I'm out in this little herb perennial garden I love when I'm planting something new and there's a worm there. I'm so happy.
It's a good thing.
Because we have a lot of clay in Ohio, and
You do.
there's no worms in clay, I can tell you that. Well, anyway, Dr. Goricki, I hope to meet you someday. We have a place in Sanibel, so it's kind of the opposite coast, but you never know.
Oh, it's beautiful down. Well, if you come down and visit Dr. Hoffman sometime, then I'm not far away.
Well, I might do that because my China rescue dog, Gidget, she came with bad upper fourth premolars. I mean, they're stained and she's only 3. So they would be Dr. McCune and Dr. Hoffman would be the only ones I would let touch her, especially after our talk with them.
Right. Yep.
Well, thank you for the work you do. It's really important.
I know. I am so impressed by the Street Dog Coalition. I think it's wonderful.
She's gone.
Well, anyway, Janet, we need to wrap it up. So I am Dr. Alice Novotny-Jeroman.
And I'm Janet Novotny King. We're the Novotny sisters from Cleveland, Ohio. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow us, like us, share us with your friends. We love thumbs up. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. We hope you found the science-based information provided helpful in taking care of your pet. Check out our other Speaking of Pets episodes wherever you get your podcasts.
We'd love to hear from you. So email your pet photos and/or pet peeves to contact@speakingofpetspod.com. Remember to follow Speaking of Pets on all social media.